I'm in the lab right now. I'm going to be doing some analytical testing. But before then, yeah, you know what? I should, just to represent, I'm in a different space of the lab, but to represent properly, put on the lab coat. You know what I mean? Proper laboratory equipment.
I like that.
Oh, but man, the PCs, you know, hitting that 15 psi, doing the thing. What a beautiful thing to communicate through mushrooms. Like that shared common experience you have as a cultivator, to like know what it means to hear that. Wonder if that water's going. Like you gotta. Are you really a mycologist if you haven't blown out the bottom of a pressure cooker once or twice? Like truly, there's so many of these little things that are 100% a part of that. That shit is crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, absolutely need that knife. So I put myself on a live too, cause like fuck it, we're running this whole thing. Let's run it.
Oh, bro. Okay, cool. So, really quickly before we begin, do you want to be introduced? Do you want to use your name, Tomas, from Myco? Are you okay with that?
Whatever you want, man. Yeah, I'm Tomas, but the Myco Zine is cool. We could leave it as the moniker. We could leave it as Tomas. I haven't decided yet. Frankly speaking, I kind of like the fact that the Myco Zine is just the Myco Zine right now. Because when you look that up, it doesn't come up as my name. You know what I mean?
Okay, cool. So we'll just stick with the moniker, Myco Zine. And when did you establish your brand and your page?
Oh, this all started at the second Oakland Psychedelic Conference last September. What was I gonna say? You can say my name is to like Tomas in the Myco Zine. I just like, if you're gonna write it out, it's gonna be something that goes on the internet. I haven't like done it like that yet. You guys.
Okay, cool. I'll introduce you as Tomas, but I will keep you as Myco Zine as far as the writing or anything in the description, anything that's like on search engines kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I'll exit the recording, and then we can still have a couple minutes of chat, or circle back about some things we talked about or anything. So you don't have to just pop out. A lot of people just do. So I've been telling everybody, like, stay on for a couple of minutes if you want to.
Let's hang out. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Just as we're done recording doesn't mean we have to stop communicating. I feel that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this dog. Can you hear my dog barking?
Not at all.
Oh, now. Hold on.
See if you can see this in the background. The Myco Zine. Should probably have it behind this one. But yeah, it's cool. So like right now, you guys, I'm recording with the Myco Trophic podcast. He uses Riverside FM, and so we're tapping in. We're gonna have this recorded. I was looking at one of your podcasts earlier, and it's so cool that you have video on Spotify. Like when I was listening to it, I was expecting just to get an audio track, and then I seen you talking with Golden Mushroom Co., and I was just like, oh shit, this is tight. Like you get people's body language, interaction, all that jazz. It's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of some Joe Rogan shit. I'm like, dang, I didn't know I had the capabilities doing that. Luckily,
just fucked around and found out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, dude, let's go ahead and get going, man. I have a lot to talk to you about. I think we're going to touch on maybe like some analytics, your introduction into the industry. I really just want to like highlight you, your brand,
sure,
things you're excited about, things you're working on, things you want to take into 2024, and ultimately we're just going to jam. There's no pressure. There's no specific questions. I'm going to kind of just freeball it like I always do. So
conversation, I'm vibing. This is super cool. This is going in the notebook, man. Book 24. Cool shit.
Let's go. All right. Well, I'm going to hit this record button, and then we're going to have a 5-second countdown.
5-second countdown.
You ready?
5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, he just put on the 5. We're live.
What's up, everybody? Myco Trophic here. Welcome back to the Myco Trophic podcast, where together we are going to grow in mind, body, spirit, and mushroom. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into analytics, a deeper dive than usually. We've had a couple people on the show talk about it, but I want to get a different perspective. And today we have someone very special. This is Tomas from Myco. Myco, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm blessed, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel honored to be a part of this community. And frankly, I'm just super supportive to everybody who hit your comments that got me onto this pod. You put out a call to like, hey, who should I have next on the pod? And I sent that out in my stories. I sent it out to a bunch of my friends and followers. And they blew up the comment section, and here we are. So, super geeked.
Bro, I was going to mention that. I was blown away. I was like, well, clearly we have to have Myco on next. There was like 20 comments. So shout out to everybody who left a comment. And, actually, I just became aware of your content, believe it or not, probably like 2, maybe 3 months ago. I didn't even like realize your page was a page. I didn't know your brand was a brand. So it's really cool to like been following you a couple months, see what you're about, and some of your affiliations, which I would love to talk about, the Oakland Hyphae Cup and all that stuff today too. And you seem like a really cool guy. I think the day before, or one of the days I really recognized you is I think you were on the Myco Alchemy Instagram live.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I gotta have this dude on. So yeah, I mean, here we are now. So my friend, let's go ahead and just start it off with like a brief introduction of who you are and what you do, what you love, and like maybe how you got started in the mycology industry, and we'll kind of just go from there.
Oh, man. Well, I'm Tomas, and I woke up blessed today because I woke up breathing. That's how I try to look at these days, man, because it can get rough out there. It really can. And I may have seen better days, but I've certainly seen worse. But my connection to the mushrooms goes back at least 10 years. Like my first experience, at least with the magic, I was in college in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it was winter time, and we were by the Mississippi River. We go up into the bluffs, and this first time I get to experience the oneness, the connection to the divinity. Man, that was crazy. Like I was crying and hugging trees. That was my first exposure to the magic and mushrooms in that regard. But actually, my first exposure when I was like 12, when I had a cousin, or it was actually a family member, hit me up and told me about them. Like, this thing's grow on. And then, in 2019, I met this cat at this meeting. We're going to talk about it.
Yes, another one. What's up, G? We just had, for those who are listening, we just had Reggie. My man, Reg. What's up with you, man? How you doing?
Dog, I'm sorry for tapping in late. It's 2 days before this motherfucking event, and we running like a chicken with their head cut off. But I appreciate you having me and goddamn Tomas on this on your show. Thank you. What's good?
Man, we're just kind of getting into it right now. So perfect timing if you ask me. I was asking Tomas a little bit about his introduction to the mycology industry, and we were just going to kind of roll from there. So I would love to have you tap in and give some of that too. Also too, if you're interested, I'd love to have you on separately too if you have like an hour or so to just chat. But I know you're prepping for this event. I want to get into analytics. I have like two like the most knowledgeable people in our localized space. One of you guys, let's just take it off. Like, what are you guys pumped about right now? Obviously you have this event coming on soon, right?
The only cup that matters. What are we talking about? The fuck? What do you mean? What am I excited about?
I want to know where. So how did you guys decide on that? Because there was a little bit of like
controversy.
I don't even want to put a bad word, but yeah, I like that. Like I like controversy. That's kind of. I mean, you got to have both. You got to be both. You got to be in between. So like, where did that come from? I know you guys are like a mainstay in the community, but like, what was your energy behind that?
Tomas, can I take this? Do you care?
Of course, and I have my own perspective on the matter, but we got to let him explain the genius behind why we came up with this name.
So the long and the short of it is, it's indisputable that we started the testing in 2020, in 2019. We started it. We started the cup in 2019, and since then you've seen a number of. Some people don't even. At first, they were even creative enough to change the name. They just called it the psilocybin cup. So we decided to change the name to the Hyphae cup. And quite frankly, in terms of science, like you can have a cup, but are you having a cup to like collect money and to show that you've done a cup, or are you having a cup to like collect data and further the science. And I didn't come up with that name. The person who came up with the name, The Only Cup That Matters, was actually the woman who does my graphics, who is a fucking brilliant woman online. She's known as Mama Della Myco. It's another thing that we're well known for is making sure that women are included in what the fuck we do in a prominent level. But she thought that, she was like, yo, this is the energy I'm feeling. And when she gave me the graphics, I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling that motherfucker.
That's the sauce.
Too. And I grew up in that. The way I grew up is if you had a fucking Lacoste shirt and you had the lion on your shit, or you had the Tommy Hilfiger on your shit, or you had the polo on your shit, we would check the tags. We checked the tags and make sure that shit was authentic.
Make sure it's valid.
Yeah, and so like that's where we coming from. It's like, all right, if you're gonna copy us, if you're gonna copy our shit, cool, that's cool. Even though I do take exception to the fact that it's cool to copy my shit, but when it comes time to doing genetics and shit, people, the same people talking about copying, it's okay to copy my shit, is like, nah, it's not cool to copy genetics. I take exception, and I'd like to have that conversation at some point. But it's like, all right, cool. If you're gonna copy my shit, then copy my shit. Copy my shit. Copy it all the way. Don't copy my shit and make it like, don't copy my shit and remove all the POCs. Don't copy all my shit and remove all the women, trans people. Don't copy my shit and remove all the women and just leave it a white boys club. Don't do that. It's 2024. I hope we're not still colonizing shit. Right. But if you're gonna copy my shit, copy it all the way. And to make your shit matter, it needs to include all those people and make sure it elevates the science and it elevates the conversation. So that's the energy we bring it from. Where I grew up, they say a hit dog hollers, and I didn't think that it was going to cause as much controversy as it did. But goddamn it, I'm happy because the minute them
the
boys
sales go up,
memes, we start, whoa. And so Tomas, I'm gonna leave it on this note. The minute them boys started making them memes, two things happened. A, people don't like when I say this, but the racists expose themselves. They expose themselves. That happened. And number two, the numbers started going up and to the left. So I thank them. I appreciate it. I'm done.
Okay. I like that perspective. It's showing up and also reminding everybody what you guys are doing, why we're doing it. I think that analytics are such an important part of what we're doing. And I've had a couple conversations recently that will show up in further episodes that kind of touch on this. But I personally, and I would think you guys would agree with this, I want the mycology community, what we're doing with these compounds, to be vastly different than what has shown up in the cannabis industry. It started with, and I always have this conversation too, it started with like whose was the strongest, and then there was this like differential, like, okay, this one makes me hyper, this one makes me sleepy, and everybody for a long time was like, weed is weed. Well, we know that now it is not. There's obviously different varying levels of THC levels, THCA, what have you.
I'm so geeked about this conversation.
It's on here because, like, I'm an advocate, but I'm also an advocate for an introduction into society that's not similar to cannabis, because cannabis as
100%
it's really truly been bastardized, because you were going for the highest numbers, and your average consumer doesn't maybe want to get blown up on their ass with some of these products. And now I don't even smoke that much anymore unless it's homegrown, because it's just a different feel, different vibe. But now that we're getting into like terpenes and there's entourage effect, now I feel like cannabis is really getting to analytics and really trying to hone in and almost going back to like landrace to try to like calm down the hyper breeding that has been happening. So now going into mycology, I would hope that we stick to analytics first to develop a product that can be given to society that allows them to go into certain or different perspectives or situations and growth and expansion. Because, for instance, like I was just talking with Magic Myco, another analytical, person, and we're talking about just even like how pigmentation can lead into possible different alkaloid contents. What are these alkaloids doing? We have more anecdotal experience right now than we do analytical and I think like clinical. But can you guys, maybe like Tomas, you're actually in the lab right now. Can you talk a little bit about your work and how you guys have been testing, and what is that like? Maybe how you guys are differentiating, what type of testing you're doing, like HPLC, kind of take it from there.
Yeah, man. So, you kind of inspired me. I was listening to your first podcast where you were just like, fuck it, I'm going to get out here. I'm just going to do the thing and start recording. And so I think it was last night I actually recorded specifically this conversation and why it is at the Hyphae Cup conference this weekend. I'm going to be breaking down how it is we can avoid the pitfalls of cannabis. Cannabis specifically targeted high THC values. And in doing so, the genetics went to shit. Everybody started growing 1 or 2 varieties and like targeted specifically based on these phenotypes, what it is people wanted to grow. And so having that information, having that backset is what allowed us to create Hyphae labs and mushroom testings, so that we don't use words like entourage effect. We use words like an ensemble. It's not necessarily that like THC is the main thing and all of these terpenes don't matter, they're secondary characters, when in fact we know that if a weed smells good, it probably smokes good too, regardless of its THC content. Like, and that's tried and true. Sun-grown weed is better. And people, the OGs, they all talk about it now. Me and Reggie were just at the Harvest Ball for the Emerald Cup. And if you talk to any of the OGs out there, it's about living soil. It's about sun-grown weed. Nobody's shooting.
Shout out to the OGs. Shout out to the OGs. Shout out to Tim Blake who inspired what the fuck I'm doing. I'm the type of dude to give credit. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm gonna give credit to people who inspired me, goddammit.
Type shit. You know what I mean? Like, we're not the first people to even come up with the idea of testing things, but we just did it with mushrooms. You know, we took somebody's concept and we evolved it to the landscape that is currently happening in front of us. Because the world is constantly moving and we got to adapt with it. And so what we're doing at the Hyphae Cup, or what we're doing at the only cup that matters, is we're actually breaking down the data of not just Hyphae data. We're looking at all these cups, all these sons of ours, of what it is that we've been building. We're actually taking steps forward to say, all right, now that we don't have just a single... Nah, bro, I'm sick of it because, look, I'm like the diplomatic one. I'm the one who's a scientist who's trying to be copacetic with everybody, but I'm fucking sick of it. Like, people's hoods are like, they can't take them off. These racists can't take their hoods off, and it shows. And this shit is crazy. And so when I get the opportunity to highlight the fact that our organization is highlighting all types of people, all different races, all different genders, all different expressions, like from scientists to people who dropped out of high school and who are just growing mushrooms to share with their community, to people who forage, like to people who build with women and community. Like, the people who are highlighted in our events are many and widely varied. And so for people to come at us like...
We don't care. We don't care if you got letters behind your name. We don't care. To be completely honest, it was a citizen scientist who fucking paved this path, goddammit. Not to interrupt you.
It's really what that is. And we get people into the lab. Like, other people might be testing analytics, but who else is bringing citizens into their lab to teach them how to use an HPLC? And so when we get into the nitty gritty of like, what are the technologies we're using? My background is in chromatography. I've been a chemist for like 7 years now, doing chromatography, HPLC, LCMS, GCMS, and I've worked in many industries under many regulated standards. And so what we're drawing from at Hyphae Labs is well over a decade of combined experience working in regulatory lab environments and using those standards and that scientific rigor to like apply to the analysis of mushrooms. And at the Hyphae Cup, we're actually going to be breaking down all the data that we've not only collected this year, but over the past several years, all the data that we got online that's publicly available. And we're going to give you meaningful information about how we avoid the pitfalls of cannabis, how we don't just go for the high potency, but we hit different cultivars. We're going to have Ian breaking down the difference between what is a strain, a genetic, and a cultivar, because people are out here using outdated terms like strain when strains describe bacterias and viruses. They don't describe the differences between these plants. It is a cultivated variety that people who are out here intentionally growing and isolating. You know what we're talking about. Reggie, this man was telling me about his pressure cooker and how we got to take care of some shit. And I'm like, man, the shared common experience of knowing what that wobble sounds like that's... Yep. Like, that's the kind of shit that we're trying to highlight here. So,
I still hear that shit in my brain. I start twitching.
Come on, man. Like, that should be my alarm. To be honest, that noise, should be my wake-up alarm. I bet I get the fuck up.
Yo, so I'm just going to ride on what the fuck you're talking about and Van, to answer your question a little bit deeper. So, after we did our first cup and we saw what happened, we made... Our first 2 cups, we made people famous. You mentioned one of them earlier. Another one his name is Travis Tyler Fluck. He's out of Denver. But the people who appeared at the top, people started going for those genetics, and all of a sudden, people started building names off of the people only at the top. The people in our lab who helped pave this way then background is cannabis testing. And so one of the things that we actively, years before people were talking about it, so this was fucking 2018, 2022, we made the decision to, you know what, Ian created the Hyphae spectrum to just so that we would show an appreciation for all of these varieties and all of these cultivars of the fungus, as opposed to having it be a race to the top, so that we leave a whole bunch of, quite frankly, useful genetics at the bottom simply because they're not testing out at the highest potency level. And what we've learned over the years is we don't even really understand what the fuck potency means. Like, we understand what high psilocybin levels mean. We understand what high salicin levels mean, but we don't understand, because some of the varietals that have like gotten close, and some of my favorite varieties, one of the beautiful things about the work that we do is I know where the quote highest strains of mushrooms are, and I'll go test those. I'll fly out to this place or that place or the third place, and I flew out to Minneapolis. These people didn't win top, that close, but they didn't win top, and they damn sure were busting out with psilocybin levels. But I ate 0.7 of them shits, and they were hitting like goddamn an 8. And so it brought us to the question of, how do we even define what a dose is? How do we even define what potency is? I feel like we're still in the fucking stone ages of what we understand in terms of testing and how we're actually communicating. So sorry to cut you off, Tomas, but I just wanted to add that to your question. Also, if my computer cuts off, Van, I told you get a few minutes, but my computer is low, so if it cuts off, that'll be it. But thank you, and we will reschedule something. Maybe we'll share something on Hyphae Leaks podcast where we'll record one, you put it on yours, I'll put it on mine.
That seems like a cool way.
So my interest now is really like the minors and how they're affecting everybody. And also, I think a huge variable, very similar to cannabis, is also every body is different. Everyone has different varying levels of hormones, enzymes, and how even compounds are broken down in someone. So like, for instance, someone who just eats a meal, or let's say someone who eats a huge mushroom brownie versus someone who hasn't eaten a day, one's going to have a different level of enzymatic quality in their stomach and is going to break down things faster and experience something totally different than, someone who's, I don't know. I think you can catch my drift where I'm going, but how are you guys data logging and presenting this information? I think it was really cool how you guys are also bringing in recent or like past testing and bringing that up with what you have now, because I feel like this whole like race to the top thing is I think it brings a lot of attention, but
it's the same
really
as the race to the bottom, man. And when it comes to marketing, the race to the top and potency is the same as the race to the top, the race to the bottom, and moving the shit around. It's the same thing. And so, look, check this out. Like, I literally just did a podcast on this yesterday where I wrote out why we started testing. What is the origin story? How Ian and I got sandwiches. Then we met up with Richie at the source, and we ended up going to Jamaica. When testing began, we began this cut because it was the first comparative analysis of any mushrooms that was publicly available that wasn't done by cops. Like, me and Ian did the research. We looked at all the papers, and it was cops that were doing this. They were arresting people, taking this, and then doing that samples. We were the first persons to do the analysis that wasn't fucking pigs. And so when we started doing that, then we looked at and said, how did cannabis testing inform the development of Hyphae Labs? The first thing that we were responsible for was looking at the pitfalls of cannabis. High potency led to diminishing genetics. Terpenes and secondary cannabinoids sought to address this, but it didn't hit the public quick enough, and it was too little too late. And so people that were vested in these labs were mostly from the East Coast, mostly venture capital money, and all of that is what drove these higher potency values. And so with Ian coming out with the Hyphae spectrum and having a conversation with Aize about wrappers and how it was actually like this horizontal list, when someone put it vertical, we saw that like, oh, simply just shifting that narrative from a horizontal list to a vertical list puts somebody on top of somebody else. And so at the Hyphae spectrum, we look at microdosing is good for one thing, going to see aliens is good for another. And if you want to go see aliens, you don't take a golden teacher. And if you want to take a microdose, having a ghost or an ape is probably not the way. Having the iceberg, you might need a little bit less. You know what I'm saying? And so establishing a dose and teaching the end user about analysis is what it is that we're here to do. Establish what a dose actually is. Because it's the same thing with alcohol, man. A beer hits people differently, but if we can settle on what is a beer, if we can settle on what is a shot, if we can settle on what is a glass of wine, then everybody can find out how that equivalent affects their body. And if you want to address the part of everybody has a different enzymatic, microbiome, chemical makeup, different experience, 100%. But the first question we need to ask is, what is actually happening? And some people use science to reach objectives. What we need to do is reach the objective of growing the mushrooms and then use science as the tool to understand what is actually happening, not the other way around.
Agreed, totally. Well, it sounds like you guys are taking a different approach, something that I can appreciate. I'm sure many others can too. Can you talk a little bit about maybe your guys' process and how it may differ? Because I know most are doing HPLC. You had mentioned a couple other different types of testing. Are you guys primarily doing HPLC? Is there any other kind of testing that is involved? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so high performance liquid chromatography is the standard for doing chemical analysis on most solutions in many industries, whether it be food and drug testing, cannabis testing, oil and gas, EPA testing, pharmaceuticals. Chromatography is like the mechanism. There's levels of chromatography that get more specific and can look at very small amounts of compounds. That's generally what mass spectrometers are used for identifying specific compounds at very low levels. But high performance liquid chromatography is taking a solution, separating it out, and using UV vis to identify the quantities of those compounds within a solution. And so what we'll do is we'll take our mushroom samples, homogenize them, extract them into a solvent that will go through our high performance liquid chromatography instrument, right? And then we get a chromatogram, and based on that data, we can tell people what is the level of psilocin, what is the level of aruginacin, what is the level of baeocystin, what is the level of psilocybin. But I'm gonna give you a hot take here. I don't even think it's just the miners. The thing that people aren't really talking about is that the mushroom itself probably has something in it that's not so chemically based that has something to do with the trip and the effect. And we often ignore that because the Western medicine model tries to isolate things down to just specific compounds. It's just psilocybin, it's just THC. When we know very well, if we look at any type of traditional medicine, that it's the whole fruiting body that's so important. It's very obvious to say, if you've ever smoked distillate cannabis, that THC distillate does not taste the same as hash rosin. There's a reason for that, because the full spectrum and the matrix that it comes in is part of the medicine. I firmly believe that.
Interesting. So with that, are you finding that there's any, like, I don't know how to put it into words, are there things that aren't being shown in the results that are important to look at, that maybe you have an eye on, or you have an inkling to what they are, that kind of give that ensemble effect?
So like I said, I think it is things that we have yet to analyze, but I have noticed specific things like different ratios in psilocin to psilocybin. How much of that psilocybin has broken down into psilocin. It's not completely analogous, but like in cannabis, THCA is the natural form that it's found in, and when it gets decarboxylated, it turns into delta-9 THC, the thing that's actively available in your body. With psilocybin, it has a bunch of phosphate groups on it, and when it becomes dephosphorylated, it becomes bioactive in your body as psilocin. And so some mushrooms will actually have varying levels of psilocin already in them, where it doesn't actually need to go through your liver and your bloodstream for it to be turned into psilocin. It's already there. And so those mushrooms likely are hitting people faster. But we can't put the cart in front of the horse and say that, oh, this is the reason why. What we need to do is identify those mushrooms, then take those, homogenize them, and establish a study with current practitioners and collect data points from real humans with anecdotal experiences. The chemistry behind this is really cool, and we're going to utilize this data as best as we can. But truly, if we want to get these results and these understandings, what we're going to need to do is collect the data first, organize these samples, find out the ones that actually do have varying levels of the minors, or aruginacin or baeocystin or something to that effect, and then give them to people, allow them to give us an experience back. Then we can actually definitively say something like, oh, this is what's causing that. But until then, we're putting the cart in front of the horse. So what we need to do is just test the samples, and we'll find out, shit, there might be a strain or a variety or a cultivar that like specifically has this minor, this matrix effect, this something else that makes it affect you differently. And then maybe we'll be able to tell the difference of why it is Golden Teacher is so good when you're trying to connect with friends and be philosophical and be out in the woods, and why it is that if you want to go to space, them apes are going to get you there, you know. But we can't do it backwards. There's an order to this scientific reasoning, and that's what we aim to do here at the Hyphae Cup, or at the Only Cup That Matters, at Hyphae Labs, and at Myco. But shit, not gonna lie, we've been talking a lot about the Hyphae Cup. I'd love to tell you a little bit more about the Myco and how we got here too.
Sure.
So
just
I
keep
kind of just
going.
want to.
Go ahead, Reg. Go ahead.
That might have been his
Frozen on
computer
my-
cutting out.
Frozen on yours. There he goes.
Then I'll shut the fuck up and let Michael Zane. Go ahead.
No, you're here. We hear you.
Hey, Reg, what were you gonna say, bro?
So, long story less long. Everything that Tomas had to say, and it did.
Computer issues. We're figuring it out, y'all.
No worries. It happens. It's part of the podcast game.
Teaming up with neuroscientists and figuring out how these means actually impact the brain. You know, so instead of dealing in anecdotes, you know, at this point over the years, I've become friends with people like Dr. Carl Hart, who is a world-renowned neuroscientist at Columbia. People like him, working with people at the University of Minnesota. I'm sorry, and there's a party happening behind me, so please forgive me. But working with scientists, neuroscientists, doctors, PhDs at the University of Minneapolis, to try to figure out how these actual tryptamines impact the brain, so that we can use our testing and neuroscience to kind of answer some of these questions. That's A. B, you know, we've been doing the potency testing so long that, and like it's been 4 years now. We were the first to jump out the window and do this. We have enough sons running around here now that they can do this potency talk. Like they can stick with mushrooms and that's all good. The thing that interests me now, quite frankly, is pushing against the drug war as much as I can. And so at this point, you know, Tomas mentioned things like mass spectrometers. Hyphae is looking to obtain a mass spectrometer so that we're doing more than just potency testing. For me, potency testing is cool, but it's boring at this point. What I'm very interested in is drug purity testing. As a person who I've been locked up, my background is hustling, and you know I'm looking at these draconian laws that the government's putting in place when they say, yo, I could be a dope boy selling coke, or I could be a dope boy selling shit. They're saying that fentanyl's in weed right now. I could be a dope boy selling anything that I need to, not to like the way that society, or the way that the press, mainstream press, makes it seem that fucking drug dealers want to kill their clients is fucking ridiculous. But nonetheless, they do. I could be selling whatever I need to sell to put a roof over my head and to put food on the table. And if I get a bad batch and that shit is laced with some other type shit, or is super potent, particularly like heroin, and people don't know what they're getting into, if my client dies, then I could get charged with a murder.
Yeah.
You know, my life is done just for trying to put food on the table. And so what Hyphae is interested in going into now is drug purity testing. Not mushroom, but anonymous drug purity testing available for the public. Like Tomas said, right now the only people who are getting large data sets of, you know, what's floating around on the streets and in what concentrations are the police. And we want to change that. I want to be able to offer free drug purity testing for
the people.
Any average dope boy in Oakland that can find a drop box and put their sample in order, A, to save lives, but B, to keep people the fuck out of jail. So I just wanted to add that. And Tomas, you can talk that science a little bit more now.
Word.
Really quickly, gentlemen, I got timer going off. I need to go take my pressure cooker off the burner right quick. But let's quickly. I kind of want to get. I guess I have a few questions as far as testing goes. So, Reggie, I think that's a very important aspect. I never even thought about that. I didn't even know that. I didn't even realize, but it's so true that police were the ones doing the testing.
Yes.
Post, acquisition of these like things from say your average grower. But so like to go back to your testing, so yeah, I do like the neuroscience aspect of it too. Like not only is everybody different, but yeah, these compounds are going to be affecting so many different parts of the brain. Can you guys quickly, while I go and take this off the pressure cooker real quick, kind of talk about how or what kind of science or research is being done with your current testing to give some like real world data, some confidence behind what people are consuming, maybe can start to drive or steer their experience?
100%. Like, this is why I'm so excited about this cup this weekend, because I'm going to be breaking down the difference between what is a strain, what is a cultivar, what are these varieties. And we've actually found out meaningful data now that we've collected a ton of data points about what is a cultivar that looks like hillbilly, what is ape, what is JMF, what is Melmac, where should it exist within the greater spectrum of all of the mushrooms. And once we understand that, like, there's actually a range from, like, let's say 4 to 8 milligrams per gram in this variety, and the other one is 10 to 18, then we should know where these things should hit, end up. And then by having mushroom analysis look more like dog breeding, what you're going to end up doing is recognizing that the best Chihuahua is not the smallest one. The best Great Dane is not the biggest one. The best Bulldog doesn't have the biggest nose. It's the one that fits the standard of what it's supposed to do. Because then once we incentivize growing towards the standard, you're going to have people growing equivalent in cannabis, the best green crack, the best Alaskan Thunderfuck, the best Blue Dream, the best Durban Poison, rather than growing a Durban Poison that's so high in THC that it doesn't become Durban Poison anymore. Growing a Blue Dream that's so high in THC that it doesn't taste like Blue Dream anymore. Growing the XYZ, you get it here. And that's the path that we could be heading down in mushrooms. But we're not going to, because as leaders of this conversation, as leaders of the science, as leaders of the culture, we're going to be able to say, hey, this is what we should be looking at moving forward. And it's our responsibility to look at what happened in cannabis, reflect on that, and make decisions that are going to allow us to highlight people's genetics rather than some potency value. And as we highlight those genetics, as we understand what a cultivar is, we're really going to go further. Can you hear me still? Are we still live?
Is he frozen?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was going towards a good point. Basically,
I was frozen
towards quality is not trying to breed the biggest, baddest, or the smallest, baddest in the Chihuahua case of every single variety. I would like to see, because I can kind of see the way the industry's going, and not just with testing the breeding, because that seems to be of interest, especially in my own world. I think breeding has been one of the funnest things I've done in the entire mycology experience so far, that everyone's going to get into it. So with a high level of breeding going on, I would hope that people start to steer towards the, one with testing, start to steer towards breeding out some of the minors and other compounds that maybe haven't been highlighted as much as psilocybin, psilocin, things like that,
Well, another aspect of the conversation that we're going to be bringing up in the Hyphae conference.
Again, I'm going to say the same. I said, well, we are in the stone ages of what we know about the mushroom. The stone age theory, I believe, is, I don't believe it. I don't know if I don't believe in it, but I believe that, we're not that far. If it is real, we're not that far from the moment that human beings just ate the mushroom, and now we're actually starting to apply the science to what the fuck we're doing. For a long time, prohibition kept things down, so the grew, and there wasn't much that went into it. But I think now, particularly in criminalized jurisdictions, the sky is the limit. So, the scientists are to liken cultivation to dog breeding, and you can breed for or against various attributes. And I'm not a scientist, but if they brought us this far, so if this is where it, I'm riding with them 100%.
So since I have you here and Tomas has to linked out, or have 3 people total on the podcast right now. Since I have you here, Reg, I kind of want to hear the next cut, man. So what prompted Jamaica?
I mean, I'm an innovator. So, you know, when there was no psilocybin cups, no mushroom cups at all, you know, I had the idea to do it, and we did it. And, you know, when we did it very, very quickly, quite frankly, it was like, all right, we've done this, and now here come the imitators. You know, for me, imitation and flattery is kind of irritating, only because I'm a creative and I'm an innovator. So we did that, and people started trying to. When people started trying to copy what I was doing, all right, what's next? You know, on the very first cup that we ever did, we did it very similar to the way that we did, you know, day-long virtual conference. We had about 400 people on, and then we announced the winners. After that, I kind of toned it down and just put it out as is, because you know the hoopla, the cup for me, the shine on it for me, it was like, all right, yeah, it's cool, and we know that we're going to create people, we're going to give people names, we're going to give careers around this, but like we've done and so we've now done about 13 conferences. We've done conferences from Oakland to LA to Denver to DC. We've done gatherings in Chicago and Minneapolis, and we've just done gatherings across the country for 3 now. And so for me, it's like, all right, we're seeing other people pop up and do conferences in this place, that place, and the third place. You know, oftentimes I feel like these conferences are inspired by, oftentimes these people are folks who I've given, you know, their first aid, or I've started introducing, if you the way that the mycelial connections take place, like a lot of these things, I look at it as a few psychedelics being even willing to show their face in public before I started holding my psychedelic conferences, at least cultivators. And so I hopped out the window, and then a lot of other people started hopping out the window, and now like it's normal. What I've decided to do in terms of Jamaica was, all right, I cultivated in Jamaica for about a year. I built labs out in Jamaica. I have connections in Jamaica. And the laws in Jamaica are like, there are no laws. It's very loose. So it's not legal, it's not illegal, but like it's part of just what happens in Jamaica and has been happening for a number of years. So in my mind, it's like, okay, what can I do that's different, that will be hot, that will be like a first? And don't get me wrong, this isn't the first psychedelic conference that's happened in Jamaica. This is the first psychedelic conference happened in Jamaica that brings culture to the deck, that brings fucking medicine workers to the deck. Generally, the psychedelic conferences that happen in Jamaica are business focused, and that's cool. We have business people who follow us and support what the fuck we doing, but we also bring all the different aspects of the community into play. So we'll have medicine workers, we'll have cultivators, we'll have business people, we'll have investors, we'll have people who make substrate, we'll have people who make genetics. We'll have all of these people that we gather into one spot. And the concept for me is we're bridging the American community with the existing Jamaican community, which has been done before. You know, at best, you'll have a few people from Miami or Florida popping over to Jamaica for their stuff, but you don't have around. Now what we're looking at is bringing a massive migration, at least temporary migration of American folks over to Jamaica and connecting those communities and building those communities out.
Myceliating.
So my theory and my thought is, after we have this community, the psychedelic space is never going to be, you know, right now most of us can't name people over there moving around and doing their shit. Like, I know a couple of them because I worked over there. Most of us, the same way that I know who Myco Trophic is, or the same way who I know who Willie Myco, the same way folks know who Oakland Hyphae is, most people cannot point to Jamaica and those sorts of people. And so what's happening is Americans and Europeans and Canadians go over there and we ignore we act like they don't, we act as if they're, please forgive this fucking party that's right behind me.
You're good.
But we act as if those people only exist in that community to serve us. You know, a very capitalist sort of framework, a very exclusionary sort of framework. What I'm going to do is go there and connect with Jamaican medicine workers, Jamaican cultivators, people who own Jamaican property, Jamaicans that own Jamaican property, not Europeans or Canadians or Americans who went over there and got property, but Jamaicans that own Jamaican.
If we're gonna
property
go over
and
there,
really
we need to
bring
build
those
with the
communities
people who
together
are already
and
there.
do something different. So that's it, man. I suffer from a high level of ADHD, and you know, I don't like doing shit that's already been done. After I've done it, I get bored with it. So we're just pushing the envelope here. So next year, I ain't doing any domestic shit. It's just going to Jamaica and we're gonna set that shit off. That's just gonna be it's gonna be 1 week retreat. So for those that don't want to just go for the Saturday and for the Saturday
conference?
and Sunday
Yeah.
conference, we're gonna have a week-long retreat where we're gonna integrate both mushrooms, but also some 4-letter into the mix. But also we're going to have very serious space held for the fungus as well. And then on the Saturday and Sunday, we're gonna run the conference play, and it should be one. I mean, it should be a conference that sets the standard for those that want to copy my shit. Go ahead and copy that.
Yeah, try and top, right? Oh my gosh, I'm really excited to see the content that comes from that. Also, the fact that you want to kind of bring up that community, because they're out there doing it, man. Like you can't negate that they're out there doing it. You're so right. I don't have coverage of what's going on over there, especially with their current laws, and because of that, I would assume that you know, biz dev, social awareness of, you know, the industry that's there can be super beneficial to what's happening over here too, to show that like people aren't going crazy. You know, there's actual labs, and like you said, you had mentioned you're setting up labs over there. I'm interested to know, because it sounds like bringing your people or the people up with you is a little bit a part about what you do. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do that, and how you innovate, or how important is bringing your people up as a part of your innovation?
The legal work that I did, I was a community organizer, and so it's part of who I am. If you look at the way that I've moved throughout this mushroom community for the last couple of years, for the last at this point 4 or 5 years, it's like at first I started out with no name, but the minute like I could kick the door in, it wasn't just me, but the whole crew, and I'm bringing, and sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes I brought people along with me that wasn't really fucking with me. They were just clout chasing. But nonetheless, it's like, yo, if you with me, I'm bringing you through. If you with me, or if I see need, it's like, how fun is it to be, like, in rap music, oftentimes they talk about how fun is it to be the only person who's rich, you know, or how fun is it to be the only person that's in these spaces. Like, it's not fun. Like, I kick the door in so I can bring all my people in. So I have, it's very, take a look at the way Hyphae is set up. So within the way that I came into this space, I came with a team, but I led the charge. And then behind me, what coattails do I have? We have Myco that spawned off of Hyphae. We have the Center from Myco Analytics that spawned off of Hyphae. We have some of these other folks who you've had on your show who I either have given their first stage, or without Hyphae, they would have no name. Like, and that's a fact. And so we have coaches that come, and you know, if you're fucking with me, I put you on at my conference. I put you on in my digital stuff. I try to raise and uplift, and not only dudes, but it's awareness is just important to me. It's not. It's I was speaking with a pretty prominent conference producer just yesterday, and we were talking about their conference. And I was the only black person at their conference. And as we were recapping, and I'm like, dog, you know, the conference was good, but it's 2023. I can't be like the only one. That feels crazy to me. You know, you guys are smart people, and they were telling me that like, this is hard. It's very hard. I'm looking at them like, dog, I can figure it out as a person with a quarter of the budget and a fraction of the budget that you have, with a fraction of the connections that you have. If I can figure it out, then you're out. And so next year we will make sure that that's different. For me, it's just I think that because I show up space the way I show up, I see it. You know, a lot of people want to call me a racist because I pay attention, because I do see race where black people and Latinos, BIPOC, I see we're not represented. I see where LGBTQ are represented. But again, that's what separates what we're doing from a lot of stuff that these other people are. They don't see it, and they don't fuck. You know, it's okay. And if you look at my team and if you look at the people who I surround myself with, I got a lot of white people around me, a lot of white support, and a lot of mainstream white support. So I'm not even anti-mainstream, but I'm just like, yo, if people are saying that the mushroom should make everything a better world and the mushroom is like ego death and all this shit, then why shouldn't the mushroom bring awareness to you where a huge segment of the community is being left out?
Intentionally left out.
These other, quite frankly, if I look at other so-called cups and their results or the people who enter, it's way crazy to me. How do you have 100 entries and it's all white boys? Like, for me, that's crazy. The way we start, it wasn't money grab. We gave away so many slots that people couldn't afford to pay. So not only do we look at economic diversity, not only do we look at ethnic diversity, but we look at economic diversity. It's important to us because there are people who are very smart who they might be bad with money, they might have kids to feed, they might have any number of reasons why they deserve to be involved in this sort of competition or involved actively in this community, can't afford the money. And so for us, like, we give away half our slots. I take that shit on the chin and I just pay it myself, just to make sure that we're diverse in every single way that we can. So it's just something that's a core value of what we do. It's how I came to this community. I didn't come to the mushroom community and decide this is something that I was all of a sudden going to do because it was socially popular and I got hard at it. It was in me when I got here.
From the ground up and supporting everybody who needs the support, I do see that you have given a few people platforms from what you've done.
Hey, I'm going to take my own credit a little bit here, though. I'm going to take my own credit a little bit here. Reggie,
you lift it up too and get some names, get some brands, and yeah, let's make it more. Let's not make it so.
Am I still even on this shit?
So let's make it like worldwide. I think the awareness part of it is what's worldwide, and yes, I think you're speaking to some good points. I'm really interested to know about some of the things. I know you have this cup coming up. I'm really excited to see what happens there. Do you have projects that you're working on that you would want more eyes on or more support on, or things that maybe you're not really talking about that you're excited to talk about?
The motherfucking Myco's in. What are we talking about?
What I mentioned to you earlier, we have the Hyphae Leaks podcast that is we're in partnership with Psychedelics. Psychedelics Today is the largest podcast in psychedelics that I know of. We've had guests like Hamilton Morris on this podcast, and we've had guests like Freeway Rick Ross on this podcast. We've had guests like Dr. Carl Hart, and we discussed like things that, quite frankly, a bunch of the mainstream podcasts are either can't touch or they're afraid to touch. And so that's a big one that we're very, very much interested in. We have the Hyphae Leaks Substack page. That is Substack. Chads were mad when I saw this woman named Bear a year ago that they wanted to attack, and I stood up against, and I'm like, dog, I'm not about to attack this fucking woman. I'm just not. Like, you guys can do the lynch mob, but that's not what I'm doing. And so I stood up against, quite frankly, the lynch mob, and the lynch mob is still out. They still are bullying people, and that's cool, but that ain't me. Like, fuck that. It's funny because I never see any of this energy in real life. But they bullied me about a year ago, and they reported my IG that was at 20,000, and they took it. So I'm about to hit 10,000 again, but they took my 20,000 IG, and as a result, I said this will never happen to me again. Like, I'll never be able to lose touch with my people. And so there's a platform called Substack that doesn't believe in censorship. And so our following of Substack is 25,000 subscribers. And if you're interested in what we do and interested in staying tapped into what Hyphae is doing, no matter what IG thinks or no matter what the Chads think, it's party time. Type into the Hyphae Leaks Substack. Next year we're rolling out. So on January the 18th, we're rolling out. We have a team of 5 writers that I'm very, very excited for. We are going to be interviewing some people like Stephen D'Angelo, who's known as the godfather of cannabis. And there's a story that we're really excited about that nobody has ever been able to do. People, if you talk to people about Stephen D'Angelo, you have 2 schools of thought. Some people say he's a great guy. Some people say that he ruined cannabis. Some people say that he's a genius. My personal experience with him is he's an extremely smart guy, but what we're doing is an investigative piece on exactly what happened with him in cannabis. And we're doing this not from a outsider looking in, but D'Angelo has given us permission to, like, he's going to participate in this investigative piece, so we're going to have all the sides of this conversation. So we're doing that. Right now we're looking into a story about the DEA having to tap in with the FDA in terms of how they classify psilocybin, so we're going to be looking into that. And then we're also going to be looking into pieces that are a little bit, I don't want to say lower level, but hit a little bit closer to the community in terms of there's a lot of organizations popping up in the psychedelic world. And so we're going to be tapping in and really getting into, some of these organizations and who the players are. So the Substack is something, the media piece is something that I'm really, really excited about and really leading into. There was I once read somewhere where they said you don't want to wage a war with a man that flies by the barrel. And so for us, it's like we gotta fight for everything we have. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of Christopher Columbus type of history on. And so if we gotta fight and we gotta make sure that our voice is heard, then why not use media platforms to amplify that? So there's all those things. And then I'll kind of wrap it up by saying we will be curating the psychedelics portion of the Emerald. It's going to be here in Oakland. We're going to be psychedelics portion in April. The week after that, we're going to be curating the psychedelics portion of the National Cannabis Festival in DC. That's April 20th. The month before that, we're going to be speaking during Psychedelics Week at South by Southwest. So we just have a really, really jam-packed year worth of shit. And so it's if you'll, as you'll know as you listen and edit this shit, hear everything that everybody says, but also Jay-Z says, I'm not looking at you dudes, I'm looking past you.
Yeah, if you're looking to your left, looking to your right, look behind you, you're not focused on the future. It sounds like you're doing so many innovative things in the space. I haven't really had a lot of time to talk to you. I've met you a few years ago at the second conference you guys had in LA, and it was so much fun, and it gave me so much more inspiration, especially from a media standpoint. And I think you're right. That ink by the barrel tip. Oh man, I like you. So for here, I'm really going hard. I'm going hard on the pod, going hard on coverage. Obviously, if I could in any shape or form be a part of coverage of any events, hit me up, let me know. But I guess I have some lasting questions here. One interesting question I have is just to kind of let people know the scope a little better. What kind of coverage do you guys have, and who's going to be covering your guys' event here? Because it's pretty monumental. I don't know how others are perceiving it, but I'm perceiving it as something huge. You're going out of country. You're going to go connect with a community that's doing this in a quite legal sense. Who's going to be covering that? And are you guys going to make any short-term documentaries or anything like that, or what's that looking like?
So to be honest, I haven't thought that far. I am going to Jamaica on January the 6th so that I can scope out my venue. Once I lock in my venue, the marketing plan will happen. At this point, we have positioned ourselves with contacts, with high-level contacts throughout not only the psychedelic community, but we just signed on with the PR company that specializes in psychedelics. And one of the things, there's been PR people who've been coming to me over the years, like, Fred, I'd love to represent you, $5,000 a month. I'd love to represent you. I'll put you in Forbes. But I've been in Forbes already. I've been in Forbes twice. I've been in Rolling Stone twice. And so we was even on Dr. Phil. And so the way I'm looking at it, and what I told them was, I'm not trying to sign on with anybody who can't get me anywhere that I haven't been. And this PR company seems as though they got receipts that say that they can get me in some places that really are going to push us into the mainstream. So I don't know that yet, but myself and this PR company that we've just made an agreement with will form a marketing plan around how we can have maximum impact around not only the Jamaica event, but all the events. If we'd love to have you down there, we'd love to have you a part of it. There's enough. What has been, and the reason why we wanted to announce it, and the reason I'm going down in January is to just give everybody enough runway. I think I put him on his first speaking panel, flew him out to Oakland, put him on stage, did all that. We're not going to be, and typically that's something that I do for a lot of people, even though now I know that he had money and he was just using my money. Typically, I do that for people who don't have money and can't really afford it, so that I can make sure we have diversity in our presentation. In Jamaica, I'm not going to be able to do that just because the international ticket costs so fucking much.
Yeah.
However, that's why we're leaning into the Jamaican locals, just to make sure that like we're diverse all the way around. So, in terms of coverage, man, if you want to tap in and get down, like we would love to have you there. I didn't think about documenting it, but now that you speak about it, it's something that like sounds like we want to do, because nothing. Yes, and I don't want to. I never want to take credit for some shit that's like not true. There has been psychedelic conferences in Jamaica. I'm not the first person to do that, but I'm the first person to do it this way. I'm the first person to bring this many people from the States. You know, we're aiming to fucking blow the roof off this bitch, and I do think it's going to be epic, and I do think it's going to set the tone for a lot of people to want to, quite frankly, come behind and copy. But like, you know, we'll be on to the next one. We'll probably do Amsterdam the year after that.
Ooh, okay. Okay. My man, it's been a hell of a podcast. Unfortunately, Tomas linked out. I'll get another one here pretty soon.
Am I on the video still?
Question for you. I ask everybody I interview, got on the show. You can answer this long form, short form. It's kind of an interpret as you may question. And that is...
Am I not on here?
Reggie, in what ways, every day, whether that's practices, mantras, community, however...
What the fuck is
how
going
are you
on?
growing in mind, body, spirit, and mushroom?
Okay. Well, I can tell you this. Recently, it's been very difficult because I was never a public person before, you know, Open Hyphae existed. I was a street person,
weird.
like kept all my shit underground. Even the clients I work with in politics, I was never in the pictures with them. And I deal with a lot of famous people, you know, but I played my role in the background.
I don't think there is a chat box.
As I've become a more prominent figure in the public, you know, hate is real, and people are vicious and people are mean. A long time, and still right now, I struggle with focusing and bringing attention on the folks who are mean and nasty. As I move forward, I'm leaning into the good, the people who look out. You know, the team. When we're talking about putting people on, it's like, all right, yo, you're fucking with me, you're rolling with me, yo, I'm 10 toes down with you. And so the way that I'm growing in mind, body, and mushroom and spirit is really looking to elevate like the good actors and people who act right, people who are ethical, people who are positive, people who bring joy into my life, people who put a smile on my life, people who I call it I'm in trouble and they say, what can I do for you? You know, and so that's how I'm growing in mind, body, and mushroom.
Love it. Love what you do, my friend. Can you let everybody know where they can find you, how they can contact you, and how they can support you?
Man, so I'm gonna do two things. You can find my man Tomas, aka Myco Zine at Myco Zine on IG. You can find me at Oaklands.hyphae on IG, or also two other things. It's Hyphae Leaks, Hyphae Leaks podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, and Hyphae Leaks Substack. Just type that shit into Google, we pop up. It's 26,000 subscribers, and we are, next year is gonna be our motherfucking year. Yo, man, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to give it a like or a 5-star review wherever you're listening at, whether that's Spotify or iTunes or YouTube. Make sure to comment down below if you guys have questions for Myco Zine or for Reggie. Please drop them down below. And you guys, subscribe so you guys get notifications whenever I post brand new videos on the channel or on the podcast. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Namaste. Have a great day. Don't contemplate. Meditate. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out. Thanks, Reggie.